G'day, I'm Mark from Self-Sufficient Me, and in this video I'm going to show you how to fill a large raised garden bed without using any soil. And then after that, we're going to plant some potatoes in it. Let's get into it. Now before we do that, let me just set this up a little bit, because some of you might be wondering, Mark, why is this bed empty anyway? Well, it's not totally empty. If you would have seen the previous video, I dug all this soil out and I transferred it to another bed, and then we had a look at the logs like this one and we evaluated what it was like after 6 years of having logs placed in the base of this bed. In the process, I found that the bed needed, well, to be refilled, hence this video, but also it needed to be fixed because this side here was bowing out. So I'll just go through quickly and let you know what I did to fix up this Birdie's raised garden bed. Firstly, Birdie's garden beds, they come shipped with these crossbars, and these crossbars are designed so that the bed doesn't bow out too much. 6 years ago, when I filled these beds up and used the hugelkultur method with logs in the base, I only put the bottom run in. Well, I don't know what I was thinking, to be honest. I just didn't think I needed the other two. Funnily enough, after that video was released, the CEO of Birdie's, Simon Bird, he actually emailed me. He said, Mark, I noticed that you didn't put those other two bars in. Did you do that for any reason? And I said, look, I just put the bottom one in and I just didn't bother with the other two. I think it'll be fine. Anyway, for this particular bed, it wasn't a disaster, but it was bowing out a little bit more than it should. So what I did was I found some old bars left over from other beds. Now that I've dug all this soil out, I might as well put these other two bars in and to stop those sides from bowing out any further and the problem getting worse. In the beginning, when I first got these beds, the hugelkultur method that I employed then was heavy logs and sticks and things that would take quite a long time to break down. The concern was that the bed might bow outward underneath the extra weight in the bed. It hasn't happened with the other three, thankfully, and I don't think I'll ever need to put those extra bars in them. But in this particular bed, you'll see that I've put these extra bars in, which is fine, and that's the normal way. But then you can see that I've put this piece of decking board in the center here. And the reason for that is because if you're using the hugelkultur method and you're putting a lot of organic matter into the bed, but it's light organic matter and not heavy stuff like logs, say it might be straw or bananas or things that break down really quickly, might be leaves and leaf litter, grass, clippings, those types of things. What can happen when you've put soil on top of that for your growing medium so that you can use the bed straight away, that mulch decomposes quite fast because it's fresh and it's light. And in that process, that soil coming down, it can put pressure on these bars going across, and the opposite happens to bowing out. The sides can get sucked in. So to combat that, I've decided to use this piece of decking wood with the holes cut in. And all I've simply done is retrofitted these bars and this decking board to size. And the only other problem, if you could call it that I had, was that these bars, because they're not the ones that were initially for this bed, I had to cut them to size, and I replaced the nuts on the end with my own nut so that I could screw it on further and then cut the excess off. The purpose of this decking board, if it isn't obvious, is simply to give that bar some extra strength so that it's obviously harder to push down on this bar when it's shorter. If this decking board wasn't in the middle, then this bar would be easily pressed down and it could pull the sides in as the bars got compressed from everything decaying and falling down. And I'm sure by now you can probably guess what I'm going to use to fill the bed. Well, it's in front of us. Two of the things not the third thing, which I'm going to still keep a secret until the end. And that is this here, all this pile of plant matter and garden waste that has been gathered from around the property just by trimming banana plants or pulling out a whole heap of weeds. This stuff here is going to be going in the base of the bed. There's a particular reason why I'm using this fresh stuff in the base. And then in the top, we're going to jam in a whole heap of this old straw or sugarcane mulch. Like I said, I'll start with this pile first, and I'll use my hand saw just to cut it up into bite-sized pieces. I've even got old rotten pumpkins. They're going to go in the bottom too. That's enough of the green stuff. Now, what the green stuff is going to do in the base of this bed is it's going to break down faster than the dry carbon stuff. What that'll do is it's going to generate more heat in this bed, which is good because we're planting potatoes in our subtropical winter. And that little bit of extra heat is going to help give those plants a little bit more of that temperature that they like, which is a little bit on the warmer side. But at the same time, there's going to be a barrier between this and obviously the potatoes, because we're going to have the straw or the sugarcane mulch as our next level to prevent those potatoes and those delicate roots and more potatoes being formed from getting burnt. Obviously, the next stage is adding the mulch, all these bales of straw or sugarcane mulch, whatever. But the thing is, I want to keep these compacted. I don't want to split them up just yet anyway, because I'll be able to jam more in here, and also it won't fall as much. You will still get a lot of fall, of course, in this bed, but you can limit it by stacking it in and pressing it down really tightly. I'll put it beside each side of the bar here to start off with. It almost fits 4 bales perfectly across this wide raised garden bed. Okay, see if I can jam this one in here. And I can. Now I'm going to use my weight, and there's plenty of it, to be able to push this down and get it as condensed as possible in the base here. In these birdies beds, you shouldn't be jumping on them and putting extra stress. You could theoretically break them as hard as they are. So don't be silly, but it doesn't hurt to just sort of walk it down like I'm doing, or pushing your mulch down a bit. And now I'm just going to keep topping this bed up with more mulch. I'm just lightly patching up this middle bit, still being aware of those bars, but I don't want everything sort of falling in, or potatoes rolling down and just falling down to the bottom of the bed. So it's got to be covered over. And now I'm starting to zhuzh the mulch up a bit, get it a little bit more loose on top. It's for a good reason. I'm tucking it into the corners as well. I don't want gaps. You can see how it's domed over. It's about half a foot at least, maybe a foot. In the middle, it's definitely a foot higher than the top of the raised garden bed here. So I'm happy with that. Now what I'm going to do is give this a premature wet down, just to settle things a little bit, get the mulch nice and wet and heavy, be breaking down through the winter. It'll probably even be smoking. It'll get that warm in here, be like a compost pile. And now what I've got is about 3 or 4 handfuls of rock minerals. These rock minerals, if you can imagine looking and see how nature works, most of the time plants and fruit trees and all that, they like to grow in a combination of organic mixture and normal inorganic stuff, like soil with minerals in it that are like calcium and magnesium and zinc and all those types of things that help plants grow and absorb other types of nutrients. If you're using a bed full of organic matter like this one, I think it's wise, although you will get plenty of good veggies growing out of it, you'll get better and healthier veggies if they've got some rock minerals in there. And so this type of supplement is going to help quite a bit to start this bed off. It's also an inoculant because it has microbes and other things in it that help break down organic matter. And so there's a number of good elements to adding some rock minerals to a bed like this. Going to sprinkle it evenly. Like I said, you could probably do without the rock minerals if you didn't have any or whatever, but it's just a nice to add to this type of garden bed makeup, layering the system with organic matter. And now the last thing I'm going to add, and you've probably all guessed what it is, to really add that last bit of value to the bed, but it technically is not soil, and that is, just let me get it, our own compost. Yes, you guessed it right. Look at this beautiful stuff. This has been sifted. I've got other stuff that isn't sifted that I'm also going to put in here. I'm going to put the whole lot into this bed. It's probably going to be maybe 10 or 15 kilo. I'm going to sprinkle and massage in to the top layer of this mulch, and it is going to also inoculate the bed with microbes, with worms, with all sorts of bugs, and at the same time it's going to be able to grow some beautiful potatoes in it. Here's the rest of that compost. I've had it sitting in the shed. I've had this cardboard on top. This hasn't been sifted, but it's going to add so much value to that garden bed. I'll save this sifted stuff for last, as a bit of a top dressing once I plant the potatoes. Now I'm going to massage it in just a bit into that top layer. All right, it's going to be faster with a shovel. All right, spread it around, massage it in just a little bit. Now to my sifted stuff, just to fill in a few gaps. Just another light watering, not a washing it through. Now it's time to plant. So I've got these Nicola potatoes, ideal for boiling, baking and roasting. Sounds great. I love all potatoes. I'm not going to break these up or cut them up. I'm just going to leave them whole. I want them to have as much energy as they need to get started. I think one here. I think I'll keep them a good distance apart. Probably half a metre, 50 centimetres. What's that, 1.5 feet? So I'll probably get 4 potato plants across. That makes for 3, 6, 9, 12 potato plants. I think that's plenty for this bed. Be interested to see how much potatoes we get back. And I'll allow these potato plants to grow big and not impede each other. In theory, that should make for bigger potatoes and hopefully a bigger crop, rather than crowding the bed in. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to bury these down about wrist deep, so probably 6 to 8 inches. And then I'm going to cover back over with that extra spare compost that I've got. So pushing it down, parting it, almost digging a hole really in the mulch. Backfilling, and then that. Simple as. Burying it down. Excellent. That over there. Handful of compost over the top. Digging it down. Plonking it in there. Backfill. Compost. Get every last bit of this compost. And give it another water in. And I'll just keep the water up maybe every 2 or 3 days depending on the weather, just to keep the bed moist. You don't want it drying completely out, but this time of year in this part of the world that shouldn't happen. So probably every 2 to 3 days, and then once the potato plants start coming through, then you can just monitor it and feel the wetness of the bed. You don't want to rot those potatoes either by overwatering, especially if you've got inclement weather through winter, which normally keeps the place pretty damp. Well, did you guess what that last ingredient was? I bet you did. I actually had people emailing me because they wanted to find out if they were correct that I was going to use straw, mulch and a mixture of compost for that classic potato planting, which a lot of people do use and have used in the past. We'll see how this one does go. I will keep you updated on it. The other thing, did you notice my shorts turned from black to grey and my sleeves rolled up a little bit further? Well, it got too dark yesterday, so I cut it and then came back and finished this garden bed off today so that you could actually see what I was doing. Ah, lovely. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you give it a big making a garden bed up without soil thumbs up, share it around and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye for now. Cheers. Yeah, I think this is going to do really well.